Hey friend, welcome to Sleepy History World. Before we begin tonight's journey, if this channel becomes a place you enjoy returning to, a place where slow storytelling helps you unwind, relax, and gently drift towards sleep, I'd really appreciate it if you took a moment to subscribe. It's a simple way to support the channel, and it helps me continue creating these peaceful history journeys for you. Now, dim the lights, get comfortable, settle into your favorite spot, and let the worries of today slowly fade away as we step back into another fascinating chapter of the past. Tonight we're leaving the modern world behind and walking through the grand doors of a magnificent Victorian mansion. From the outside, these enormous houses look like symbols of perfect wealth, elegance, and respectability. Their polished windows, beautifully trimmed gardens, and towering chimneys suggested lives of effortless luxury. But behind those impressive walls was an entirely different world, one filled with hidden staircases, secret routines, strict rules, hard-working servants, lavish dinners, quiet family traditions, and countless untold stories that most visitors never witnessed. As we wander from glittering ballrooms to busy kitchens hidden below stairs, from peaceful libraries to grand dining halls lit by hundreds of candles, you'll discover what everyday life was really like inside one of the most extraordinary homes of Victorian England. You may even realize that beneath all the elegance and luxury, life inside a great mansion was far more complicated than it first appeared. So close your eyes if you'd like, take a slow, comfortable breath, and let's quietly step through the front door together into the fascinating hidden world of a Victorian mansion. Imagine arriving at the grand entrance of a Victorian mansion on a cool morning in 19th century England, where every stone, every polished window, and every carefully trimmed hedge quietly announces that this is a place built not only for comfort, but for status. Long before you reach the front door, the house begins to impress you. A sweeping gravel driveway crunches beneath carriage wheels, towering oak trees shade the approach, and colourful flower beds are arranged with mathematical precision by gardeners who have already been working since sunrise. Massive brick walls rise several stories high, decorated with ornate chimneys, carved stone details, and tall windows that reflect the changing sky. At the centre stands an enormous front door, usually crafted from solid oak and fitted with a gleaming brass knocker, so polished that it catches the morning light like gold. From the outside, everything appears peaceful and perfectly organized. Yet behind these elegant walls exists an entire hidden world, where dozens of people work tirelessly to maintain the illusion that life inside the mansion unfolds effortlessly. The moment the heavy front door swings open, you are welcomed into a spacious entrance hall, unlike anything most Victorians would ever experience. The floors are covered with intricate black and white tiles or polished hardwood that reflects the glow of chandeliers hanging high above. Rich wallpaper climbs the walls, decorated with elaborate floral patterns or deep jewel, coloured designs that signal wealth and fashionable taste. Portraits of ancestors gaze down from gilded frames, silently reminding every visitor that this family has spent generations building its reputation. Umbrella stands, carved wooden benches, marble-topped tables, and enormous mirrors fill the hall without making it seem crowded. Everything has its place, and everything must remain spotless. A single fingerprint on the polished banister would quickly attract the attention of a housekeeper who expected perfection. As you continue deeper into the mansion, the scale of the house becomes almost overwhelming. Wide corridors stretch in several directions, leading to drawing rooms, libraries, music rooms, dining halls, conservatories, and private family chambers. Thick carpets soften every footstep, muffling sounds so thoroughly that conversations seem almost whispered. Heavy velvet curtains frame tall windows that flood the rooms with natural light during the day, while helping keep out cold drafts during winter. Marble fireplaces dominate nearly every room, although keeping them burning requires constant effort from servants who quietly refill coal and remove ashes without disturbing their employers. Decorative clocks tick steadily throughout the mansion, reminding everyone that Victorian households followed carefully planned schedules where every hour had its assigned purpose. The drawing room serves as the social heart of the mansion. Here guests are entertained with afternoon tea, polite conversation, music, and carefully rehearsed manners. Elegant sofas upholstered in velvet or brocade surround polished tables, displaying porcelain figurines, fresh flowers, and expensive books that are often meant as much for decoration as for reading. Ladies wear beautifully tailored dresses with wide skirts that spread gracefully across upholstered chairs, while gentlemen discuss politics, literature, business, or the latest developments within the British Empire. Conversations remain polite even when disagreements arise, because maintaining composure is considered one of the highest signs of refinement. Raising one's voice would be deeply embarrassing, especially in front of visitors whose opinions could influence family reputation. Nearby lies the library, one of the quietest and most impressive rooms in the mansion floor. To-ceiling bookshelves filled with leather, bound volumes line every wall, interrupted only by tall windows or carved fireplaces. Rolling ladders allow access to the highest shelves, while comfortable leather armchairs invite long afternoons of reading beside glowing fires. Shelves contain histories, scientific works, travel journals, poetry collections, and classical literature gathered over decades or even centuries. For the master of the house, the library represents both education and authority. It is here that important financial decisions are made, letters are written, newspapers are read, and private conversations take place far from the formal atmosphere of the public rooms. One of the mansion's most breathtaking spaces is the dining room, where evening meals become elaborate performances reflecting wealth and social standing. A massive polished table stretches across the room, capable of seating a dozen or even 20 guests during grand dinners. Fine linen tablecloths, sparkling crystal glasses, polished silverware, and delicate china are arranged with astonishing precision. Every fork, knife, spoon, and plate occupies an exact position determined by strict rules of etiquette. Tall silver candlesticks cast warm light across the table, while servants silently appear between courses, replacing dishes almost before guests realize they have finished eating. Dinner may last several hours, progressing through soups, fish, roasted meats, vegetables, pastries, puddings, cheeses, and fresh fruit, each course carefully timed and elegantly presented. The family bedrooms occupy quieter sections of the mansion, designed to provide comfort while displaying prosperity. Large four-poster beds draped with heavy curtains dominate each room, protecting sleepers from cold drafts that often found their way through Victorian windows. Thick mattresses stuffed with horsehair or feathers offer remarkable luxury compared with the simple beds used by ordinary families. Washstands hold porcelain basins and matching pitchers filled with fresh water, delivered every morning by servants. Large wardrobes contain carefully arranged clothing suitable for every occasion, while dressing tables display silver brushes, perfumes, jewelry boxes, and neatly folded gloves. Fireplaces warm the rooms during winter. Although temperatures often remain cooler than modern homes because central heating does not yet exist. The lady of the house begins each morning surrounded by routines requiring both patience and assistance. A maid helps arrange elaborate hairstyles that may take an hour or more to complete. Dresses often consist of numerous layers including chemises, corsets, petticoats, bustles, and carefully tailored outer garments fastened with dozens of buttons and hooks. Simply getting dressed becomes a complex ritual impossible to accomplish quickly. Once prepared, she oversees household matters, writes letters, receives visitors, practices music, reads novels, or organizes charitable activities expected of women in her social position. Although she appears to live a life of leisure, her daily schedule remains tightly governed by social expectations that leave little room for complete independence. The gentleman of the house usually begins his day by reviewing correspondence delivered from across Britain or even distant parts of the empire. Business matters, estate management, investments, and political affairs occupy much of his attention before breakfast concludes. Depending on his interests, he may inspect farmland, meet lawyers, manage industrial enterprises, participate in local government, or simply spend hours reading financial reports inside the library. Wealth often brings responsibility as well as privilege, and maintaining vast estates requires careful oversight even when professional managers handle much of the daily work. Children experience a world quite separate from their parents. Rather than spending most of their time with mother and father, they are cared for by nurses, governesses, and tutors who supervise nearly every aspect of their upbringing. Lessons begin early, covering mathematics, history, geography, languages, music, drawing, and proper manners. Boys are prepared for future careers or prestigious schools, while girls receive education emphasizing accomplishments considered suitable for society, including piano, embroidery, French conversation, and graceful behavior. Playtime certainly exists, but even games often reinforce discipline and proper conduct expected from future ladies and gentlemen. While the elegant family enjoys beautifully furnished rooms above, an entirely different world operates below stairs. Hidden beneath the polished floors lies a network of kitchens, pantries, laundries, storage rooms, wine cellars, servants' halls, and narrow corridors, rarely seen by guests. This underground world functions like a carefully organized machine where cooks, kitchen maids, scullery maids, butlers, footmen, housemaids, laundry workers, coachmen, gardeners, and countless others perform endless tasks from dawn until late at night. Their movements are choreographed to remain nearly invisible, allowing the family to experience uninterrupted comfort without witnessing the labor that makes such luxury possible. The kitchen is among the busiest places in the entire mansion. Enormous cast iron ranges burn almost constantly, filling the room with intense heat regardless of season. Copper pots hang from walls, freshly baked bread cools on wooden racks, and cooks supervise multiple meals simultaneously, while barking quiet instructions to assistants. Fresh vegetables arrive from kitchen gardens. Milk comes from estate cows. Game may be delivered directly from nearby forests, and fish reaches the house packed in ice after overnight journeys. Every ingredient must be prepared by hand, because modern electric appliances do not yet exist. Bread is kneaded manually, vegetables peeled individually, sauces stirred continuously, and desserts carefully decorated without mechanical assistance. Imagine wandering beyond the grand reception rooms and polished hallways of a Victorian mansion, where every doorway reveals another layer of a world carefully designed to display elegance, authority, and refinement. At first glance, the house appears almost timeless, as though every carpet has always been perfectly straight. Every silver candlestick has always gleamed, and every curtain has always fallen in flawless folds. Yet nothing inside the mansion remains beautiful by accident. Behind every polished surface stands an invisible army of workers whose efforts begin long before the family opens their eyes each morning. The mansion itself almost seems alive, waking before sunrise and continuing its quiet rhythm long after its owners have gone to sleep. Before daylight fully reaches the countryside or the busy streets of Victorian London, the servants' quarters are already filled with movement. Housemaids descend narrow staircases carrying candles that flicker against plain whitewashed walls. Boots echo softly across stone floors as the cook lights the enormous kitchen range, feeding it coal until the iron plates become hot enough to prepare breakfast. Somewhere in the stable yard, grooms brush horses that spent the night in warm stalls, while coachmen inspect carriage wheels, leather harnesses, and polished brass fittings. Gardeners emerge carrying heavy tools, trimming hedges before dew has even disappeared from the lawns. To the wealthy family upstairs, the morning appears peaceful and effortless, but dozens of people have already completed several hours of demanding labour before anyone in the family rings for tea. One of the first sounds the family hears is the soft knock of a servant carrying hot water for washing. Since modern plumbing is still limited, every basin must be filled by hand. Large copper kettles are heated downstairs before buckets of steaming water are carried through the house. Even this simple luxury requires remarkable effort. A servant may climb hundreds of stairs each day carrying heavy containers, simply so that someone else may enjoy a comfortable morning routine. Empty basins are collected again later, their contents disposed of without disturbing the household's calm atmosphere. Breakfast itself reflects both wealth and Victorian values. Instead of a hurried meal, it unfolds at a measured pace. Fresh bread, still warm from the oven, rests beside dishes of butter, preserves, eggs, smoked fish, bacon, sausages, grilled kidneys, porridge fruit, and steaming pots of tea or coffee. Silver covers keep every dish warm until it is served. Newspapers are carefully folded beside each place setting, allowing gentlemen to read about Parliament, overseas trade, railway expansion, scientific discoveries, and events throughout the British Empire. Conversations remain gentle and controlled. Loud voices are considered poor manners, particularly during breakfast, when the day is expected to begin with composure rather than excitement. The mansion itself reflects the Victorian fascination with collecting. Almost every room contains objects gathered from across the expanding empire. Chinese porcelain, Indian textiles, African carvings, Egyptian antiquities, and delicate Japanese lacquerware occupy cabinets and shelves. Many visitors admire these collections without ever considering how far each object travelled before reaching this peaceful English home. Every item tells a silent story of global trade, exploration, diplomacy, and colonial expansion that shaped the Victorian world. Displaying such collections also demonstrates education and sophistication, allowing guests to admire not only the family's wealth, but also their supposedly refined appreciation of culture. The walls of the mansion are rarely left bare. Landscapes, hunting scenes, family portraits, and classical paintings cover nearly every available space. Some portraits depict stern ancestors dressed in powdered wigs from centuries earlier, while others show recently deceased relatives whose memories remain fresh within the family. Children often grow up surrounded by generations of watchful faces, staring down from ornate gold frames. These portraits quietly remind everyone of family honor, inherited responsibility, and the expectation that future generations must continue protecting the family's reputation. The soundscape inside the mansion is surprisingly gentle. Thick carpets absorb footsteps so completely that even several people walking together create very little noise. Clock chimes echo from distant hallways every quarter hour. Somewhere a piano plays softly as a daughter practices scales under the watchful eye of her music teacher. Pens scratch across expensive stationery while letters are written beside sunny windows. Occasionally, the distant ringing of servant bells breaks the silence. Hidden throughout the mansion, an elaborate bell system connects family rooms with servants below stairs. A single pull of a cord causes a bell to ring in the servants' corridor, signaling exactly which room requires attention. Within moments, someone appears, often before the family member has even begun wondering where assistance might be. The Victorian obsession with cleanliness extends far beyond appearances. Dusting becomes an endless battle because coal fires constantly release fine soot into the air. Curtains, books, furniture, chandeliers, mirrors, and decorative ornaments all require continual attention. Feather dusters sweep over carved woodwork every morning. Brass doorknobs are polished until reflections become perfectly clear. Marble fireplaces are wiped repeatedly, despite accumulating ash each day. Window cleaners climb ladders to reach towering panes of glass, ensuring that sunlight enters every room without revealing even the faintest smear. Despite all its grandeur, a Victorian mansion is not always warm. The enormous size of the building makes heating difficult, especially during harsh winters. Family members often remain close to fireplaces, while servants moving constantly between rooms grow accustomed to sudden changes in temperature. Bedrooms can become surprisingly cold overnight. Heavy curtains surrounding four-poster beds help trap precious warmth, and hot water bottles wrapped in cloth are placed beneath blankets. Before bedtime, thick woolen dressing gowns and slippers become essential companions during chilly mornings. Lighting presents another daily challenge before electricity becomes common. Evening illumination depends entirely upon candles, oil lamps, and gas lighting. Each evening, servants move methodically from room to room, lighting dozens, sometimes hundreds of flames. Later, they repeat the journey, extinguishing every light before bedtime. Chandeliers holding dozens of candles produce magnificent displays during dinner parties. But each candle burns only for a limited time and leaves melted wax requiring careful cleaning afterward. Maintaining brilliant evening light demands constant preparation long before guests arrive. Entertainment inside the mansion rarely depends upon modern distractions. because none exist. Instead, evenings revolve around conversation, music, reading aloud, card games, embroidery, chess, poetry recitations, and amateur theatrical performances. A talented daughter may spend an hour performing piano compositions by Chopin or Mendelssohn, while guests quietly applaud between pieces. Gentlemen sometimes gather around the fireplace, discussing engineering, politics, archaeology, or the latest inventions transforming Victorian society. Scientific curiosity flourishes during this period, and wealthy households often enjoy debating discoveries involving steam power, electricity, evolution, photography, and distant archaeological expeditions. Photography itself gradually becomes another fascinating feature of wealthy Victorian life. Family portraits once requiring expensive paintings can now be captured using early cameras. Sitting for these photographs remains far from comfortable. Exposure times are long, forcing subjects to remain perfectly still for several seconds or even minutes. The resulting photographs often appear serious because smiling throughout such lengthy exposures proves difficult. Albums filled with carefully mounted photographs soon occupy drawing room tables, allowing visitors to browse images of relatives, holidays, weddings, and country estates. Seasonal celebrations transform the mansion throughout the year. Christmas becomes particularly spectacular during the later Victorian period. Towering evergreen trees decorated with candles, ribbons, ornaments, and handmade gifts stand proudly inside reception rooms. Children eagerly await presents arranged beneath glittering branches, while kitchens prepare enormous feasts, including roast turkey, goose, plum pudding, mince pies, and festive cakes. Carol singers sometimes gather outside, their voices drifting through frosty evening air as fireplaces crackle warmly indoors. The celebration combines religious tradition with growing Victorian enthusiasm for family-centered festivities. Summer offers entirely different pleasures. French doors open onto sweeping terraces overlooking colourful gardens where roses bloom beside carefully trimmed hedges. Afternoon tea may be served beneath striped awnings while bees hum lazily among flower beds. Croquet games unfold across perfectly maintained lawns, and children chase butterflies while governesses attempt to maintain orderly behaviour. Occasionally, the family hosts lavish garden parties attended by local landowners, military officers, clergy, and distinguished visitors. White tablecloths stretch beneath enormous tents. Orchestras perform cheerful music, and servants weave effortlessly through crowds carrying silver trays filled with cakes, sandwiches, strawberries, and sparkling lemonade. Beyond the ornamental gardens lie productive areas rarely noticed by visitors. Imagine spending an entire year inside a great Victorian mansion, watching the seasons transform not only the gardens outside, but also the rhythm of life within its towering walls. Every month brings new routines, fresh responsibilities, and subtle changes that most visitors would never notice. The mansion is far more than an impressive building. It is a living system where hundreds of daily tasks must unfold with remarkable precision. Every servant, every family member, every clock, and every room follows an invisible schedule that has been refined over generations. To outsiders, life appears graceful and effortless, but the reality is an extraordinary balance of discipline, planning, and constant work. One of the first things you would notice after living in the mansion for several days is the remarkable absence of clutter. Victorian families of great wealth owned thousands of possessions, yet almost nothing seemed out of place. Hats disappeared into dedicated closets moments after arriving home. Walking sticks rested neatly inside carved stands. Gloves were folded carefully into drawers. Letters were sorted, tied with ribbon, and stored in polished writing desks. Every object had a permanent location, and servants knew exactly where each item belonged. A misplaced book or forgotten teacup rarely remained unattended for long. The mansion itself often contains dozens of fireplaces, each serving as the heart of its room. During autumn, servants spend days preparing for the colder months ahead. Chimneys are inspected, grates polished, coal deliveries increased, and stacks of neatly cut firewood arranged in hidden storage areas. When winter finally arrives, keeping the mansion warm becomes one of the household's greatest challenges. Fires must be lit before sunrise, maintained throughout the day, and carefully reduced before bedtime. Even then, many corridors remain surprisingly cold. Walking from a cozy drawing room into an unheated hallway can feel like stepping outdoors. The smell inside the mansion changes with the seasons. Spring brings the fragrance of fresh flowers arranged in elegant vases throughout the house. Lilacs, roses, lilies, and lavender perfume entrance halls and reception rooms. Summer carries the scent of freshly cut grass drifting through open windows along with warm beeswax from polished furniture. Autumn fills the corridors with the comforting aroma of roasting game, baked apples, cinnamon, and burning wood. Winter introduces the unmistakable smell of coal fires, evergreen branches, hot mulled drinks, and rich Christmas puddings slowly steaming in the kitchens below. Every meal requires astonishing preparation. Long before dinner, guests admire beautifully arranged tables. Cooks have already spent countless hours chopping vegetables, preparing sauces, baking pastries, roasting meats, and tasting every dish repeatedly. Nothing is left to chance. Even the bread is often baked fresh each day. Cream is churned into butter. Stocks simmer for hours over low heat. Cakes are decorated entirely by hand. The kitchen functions almost like a military operation, where timing determines success. A single delay could affect every course served upstairs. Food storage presents another challenge modern people rarely consider. Without electric refrigerators, enormous ice houses help preserve meat and dairy products. During winter, blocks of ice harvested from frozen lakes are packed beneath layers of straw inside specially designed underground buildings. These stores of natural ice may last well into summer, allowing kitchens to keep certain foods cool. Even during warmer months, large pantries remain carefully ventilated, while hanging game birds and cured meats occupy dedicated storage rooms where temperatures stay relatively stable. The wine cellar beneath the mansion often resembles a small underground vault. Thousands of bottles rest quietly on wooden racks, protected from light and sudden changes in temperature. Fine wines from France, Portugal, Spain, and Germany age patiently for years before appearing at important dinners. The butler usually oversees this collection personally, keeping detailed records of every bottle served. Selecting the correct wine for each course becomes almost an art, reflecting both knowledge and social refinement. The butler himself occupies one of the most respected positions among the servants. Unlike popular modern portrayals, he is far more than someone who opens doors. He manages valuable silver collections, supervises male servants, oversees formal dinners, protects expensive wines, maintains household accounts, and often becomes one of the family's most trusted employees. His authority extends throughout much of the household, and younger servants quickly learn to respect his standards of discipline and professionalism. Housemaids face an endless cycle of physically demanding work. Bedrooms must be aired every morning by opening windows regardless of weather. Beds are remade with military precision, blankets stretched perfectly flat without wrinkles. Chamber pots are emptied discreetly before anyone notices. Fresh flowers replace fading arrangements. Candles are checked, curtains straightened, mirrors polished, and rugs brushed until they appear almost new. The work repeats every single day without exception. The mansion's enormous staircases create unexpected challenges. Family members usually use the grand staircase designed to impress visitors, with polished banisters, rich carpets, and magnificent chandeliers. Servants, however, often climb entirely separate staircases hidden behind plain doors. These narrower routes allow staff to move unseen between floors while maintaining the illusion that elegant rooms somehow remain perfectly organized without visible effort. A servant might climb these hidden stairs dozens of times each day, carrying everything from heavy buckets to delicate china. Sound travels differently throughout such a large building. The thick walls create surprising pockets of silence where distant conversations fade into soft murmurs. Yet certain noises become familiar companions. The steady ticking of grandfather clocks echoes gently through quiet corridors. Fireplaces crackle softly as logs settle into glowing embers. Occasionally, a distant servant bell rings below stairs, followed moments later by quick footsteps disappearing into hidden passageways. During windy nights, chimneys sometimes produce low whistles that drift through upper bedrooms, reminding everyone just how large the house truly is. Rain transforms the atmosphere completely. Heavy drops drum rhythmically against tall windows, while grey skies darken richly decorated rooms long before sunset. Fires burn throughout the day, even during summer storms, filling the mansion with warm orange light that reflects across polished furniture. Family members gather in libraries or drawing rooms, reading novels, writing letters, solving puzzles, or listening to piano music while the weather rages outside. The thick stone walls create a comforting sense of protection, making storms feel almost theatrical rather than threatening. Snow brings an entirely different beauty. Gardens disappear beneath smooth blankets of white. Statues wear icy caps, and frozen ponds sparkle beneath pale winter sunlight. From upstairs windows, children watch gardeners clear pathways, while horses pull sledges or carriages carefully across snowy driveways. Indoors, the contrast feels extraordinary. Thick carpets, glowing fireplaces, warm tea, and candlelight create an atmosphere of remarkable comfort despite the freezing world beyond the glass. The mansion also serves as a centre of local society. Throughout the year, invitations arrive almost daily. Some evenings feature intimate dinners with only a handful of guests, while others welcome dozens of visitors for lavish celebrations. Birthdays, anniversaries, political gatherings, charity events, musical evenings, hunting parties, and holiday festivities fill the social calendar. Refusing invitations too often could damage important relationships, while hosting successful gatherings strengthens the family's reputation throughout the county. Fashion plays an enormous role inside the mansion. Clothing is changed several times each day depending upon the occasion. Morning attire differs from afternoon. Visiting clothes, which differ again from formal evening dress. Ladies may require assistance simply fastening the countless hooks, ribbons, buttons, and laces decorating elaborate gowns. Gentlemen change jackets, waistcoats, collars, gloves, and footwear according to strict social conventions. Maintaining these wardrobes requires constant washing, pressing, repairing, brushing, and careful storage by dedicated servants. Children experience the mansion very differently from adults. Hidden corners become imaginary castles. Long corridors transform into racetracks whenever governesses briefly look away. Secret conversations occur beneath staircases or inside unused attics, filled with old furniture covered by dust sheets. Rainy afternoons are spent building miniature theatres, solving riddles, reading adventure stories, or exploring forgotten cupboards containing toys from previous generations. Although discipline remains strict, childhood curiosity still finds countless opportunities within such an enormous home. Pets often become beloved members of wealthy Victorian households. Elegant hunting dogs sleep beside fireplaces after long days outdoors. Small lapdogs accompany ladies during afternoon visits. Colourful songbirds occupy decorative cages near sunny windows, filling drawing rooms with cheerful melodies. Stables house prized horses whose care requires skilled grooms working throughout the year. Even these animals become part of the carefully organized rhythm that defines daily life. Imagine arriving during one of the mansion's busiest weeks of the year, when preparations are underway for a magnificent evening ball that the entire county has been anticipating for months. Although the grand event lasts only a few hours, the work behind it begins many days in advance. Servants dust every chandelier crystal until each piece catches the light like a tiny diamond. Silver candlesticks are polished so thoroughly that they resemble mirrors. Fresh flowers arrive by the cartload, filling the entrance hall with the fragrance of roses, lilies, and sweet peas. Upholstered furniture is carefully rearranged to create space for conversation, while musicians rehearse in distant rooms where their melodies drift softly through the house. To the family, everything appears calm and perfectly organized. But behind the scenes, the household has become a whirlwind of carefully controlled activity. The ballroom, often one of the largest rooms in the mansion, is transformed into an elegant stage where wealth and social grace will soon be displayed. Wax is applied to the polished wooden floor until it shines beneath the enormous chandeliers overhead. Mirrors along the walls double the sparkle of hundreds of candle flames, making the room seem even larger than it already is. Tall windows stretch almost from floor to ceiling, their heavy velvet curtains tied neatly aside with golden cords. Musicians tune violins, cellos, and pianos while servants quietly arrange rows of chairs along the walls for guests who will pause between dances. Everything is designed to impress before a single visitor has even stepped through the front door. As evening approaches, the mansion slowly comes alive. Carriages begin arriving one after another, their wheels crunching across the gravel driveway, while lanterns flicker in the growing darkness. Footmen hurry forward carrying umbrellas if rain threatens, opening carriage doors with perfect timing. Ladies emerge, wearing shimmering silk gowns that catch the candlelight with every movement. Gentlemen, dressed in immaculate black evening coats and crisp white gloves, escort their companions through the grand entrance, Their conversations remain cheerful yet measured, filled with polite compliments and news gathered since their previous meeting. Every arrival is quietly observed, not only by the hosts but by other guests curious to see who has accepted the invitation. The entrance hall soon fills with gentle laughter, rustling fabrics, and the soft tapping of polished shoes across marble floors. Coats, hats, shawls, and cloaks disappear into cloakrooms managed efficiently by servants whose names most guests will never learn. The butler welcomes each visitor with calm professionalism, directing them towards the drawing room where refreshments await before the evening's entertainment begins. Crystal glasses sparkle beneath the chandeliers, while trays of delicate pastries, sandwiches, and sweet biscuits circulate effortlessly through the gathering crowd. For young ladies making their first appearance in fashionable society, such evenings are both exciting and intimidating. Every detail of their behavior has been carefully practiced for years. They must greet guests gracefully, maintain elegant posture, dance confidently, and converse intelligently without appearing boastful. Mothers quietly observe from nearby chairs, offering discreet advice whenever an opportunity arises. Fathers discuss estates, politics, and business matters with fellow gentlemen, occasionally glancing across the room to ensure everything proceeds according to plan. Once the musicians begin the first notes of a waltz conversation, gradually gives way to movement. Couples glide across the polished floor with remarkable elegance, their carefully rehearsed steps creating the illusion of effortless harmony. The ladies' wide skirts sweep gracefully through the air, while gentlemen guide their partners with measured confidence. Around the edges of the room, older guests watch with quiet satisfaction, occasionally applauding particularly graceful performances. Even those who choose not to dance become part of the spectacle, forming elegant groups engaged in thoughtful conversation beneath towering chandeliers. Meanwhile, the hidden world below stairs becomes even busier than the ballroom above. Cooks work in intense heat preparing late night suppers for dozens of hungry guests. Roasted meats are carved with astonishing speed, pastries filled moments before serving, and soups kept warm over enormous ranges. Kitchen maids rush between ovens carrying trays almost too heavy to lift comfortably, while the head cook supervises every plate leaving the kitchen. Timing remains everything. Food must arrive upstairs, neither too early nor too late, and every course must appear fresh. Despite serving such a large gathering, the scullery, rarely seen by visitors, resembles an endless river of plates, glasses, and silver cutlery, flowing continuously through steaming sinks. Dirty dishes arrive almost faster than they can be washed. Water splashes against stone floors while brushes scrub delicate china with surprising speed. The youngest servants often spend entire evenings here, working tirelessly, so that elegant dining rooms upstairs never run short of spotless tableware. Their labour remains almost entirely invisible, yet without them the grand evening would quickly descend into disorder. Outside, another world continues beneath the moonlight. Coachmen gather beside rows of waiting carriages, wrapped in thick coats against the evening chill. Horses stamp their hooves impatiently, releasing clouds of warm breath into the cold night air. Stable boys check harnesses, refill water buckets, and soothe restless animals while waiting for the celebration to end. Some guests remain inside until the early hours of morning, meaning these workers often spend much of the night outdoors regardless of weather. Not every evening inside the mansion is so grand, however. Most nights are surprisingly peaceful. After dinner, Family members often gather around the fireplace rather than hosting elaborate parties. Someone may read the latest novel aloud while others embroider, sketch, or quietly work on correspondence. The atmosphere becomes almost intimate despite the mansion's enormous size. Lamps cast warm pools of light across richly patterned carpets, while rain taps gently against distant windows. These quieter evenings often reveal the true character of the household, far more than extravagant celebrations. Letter writing occupies a remarkable portion of Victorian life. Without telephones or instant communication, handwritten correspondence connects families across the country and throughout the empire. Every week the household sends and receives thick bundles of letters discussing everything from business arrangements to family news, holiday invitations, engagements, illnesses, and political developments. The writing desk becomes one of the most frequently used pieces of furniture in the mansion. Fine stationery, sealing wax, fountain pens, and bottles of ink remain neatly arranged, ready whenever inspiration or obligation requires another carefully composed letter. Reading also flourishes within the mansion. The latest novels by Charles Dickens, the Brontë sisters, Anthony Trollope, and George Eliot pass from hand to hand among family members. Newspapers arrive daily carrying reports from Parliament, foreign conflicts, scientific discoveries, railway expansion, and society gossip. Illustrated magazines introduce readers to fashions from Paris, archaeological discoveries in Egypt, and inventions displayed at international exhibitions. The Victorian world changes rapidly, and wealthy families take pride in remaining informed about the latest developments. Music fills many afternoons. A daughter practices piano scales while her younger brother struggles through violin lessons nearby. Occasionally visiting musicians perform for the family, transforming an ordinary evening into a private concert. Singing around the piano remains a favorite form of entertainment, especially during holidays when relatives gather beneath one roof. Without recorded music, every performance feels unique because it exists only in that moment before fading into memory. The mansion's gardens provide a peaceful escape from formal indoor life. Winding gravel paths lead visitors through rose gardens, ornamental ponds, and carefully clipped hedges shaped into graceful patterns. Stone benches invite quiet reflection beneath ancient oak trees that have shaded generations of the same family. Gardeners work constantly, pruning shrubs, replacing seasonal flowers, and removing weeds almost before anyone notices them. Their goal is not merely beauty but perfection, creating landscapes that appear untouched by human effort despite requiring endless maintenance. Hidden behind the decorative gardens lies a productive estate that keeps much of the household running. Vegetable gardens stretch in neat rows producing peas, carrots, onions, cabbages, beans and herbs for the kitchens. Glass houses protect delicate fruits throughout colder months. Chicken coops provide fresh eggs each morning, while orchards supply apples, pears, plums and cherries that become jams, pies and preserves. Even wealthy households appreciate the satisfaction of producing fresh food on their own land. As years pass, children who once raced laughing through the corridors gradually become adults hosting gatherings of their own. Portraits are added to the walls, marking each new generation. Furniture slowly acquires tiny scratches that speak not of neglect, but of decades of careful use. Favorite chairs become polished, where countless hands have rested upon their arms. Staircases where smooth beneath thousands of footsteps. These small signs of age give the mansion a quiet dignity impossible to create artificially. Imagine remaining awake after everyone else has gone to bed, quietly observing the mansion during the hours when almost no visitors ever see it. The great house seems entirely different after midnight. The lively conversations that once filled the drawing rooms have faded away. The music has stopped, and even the servants speak only in whispers, so they do not disturb those sleeping upstairs. Candle flames grow smaller as they burn lower, casting long shadows across polished walls. The ticking of clocks becomes the loudest sound in the building, echoing gently through corridors that only hours earlier bustled with activity. It is during these peaceful hours that the mansion feels less like a house and more like a living creature resting after another demanding day. Before anyone retires for the night, dozens of final duties must be completed. Every exterior door is checked and locked. Window shutters are secured against wind and rain. Fireplaces are carefully inspected to ensure that no dangerous sparks remain. Some fires are allowed to burn slowly beneath layers of ash so they can be revived quickly the following morning, while others are extinguished completely. Candles are collected from unused rooms, their remaining wax carefully saved because nothing valuable is wasted. The dining room, which only a short time earlier hosted elegant conversation, is quietly restored to perfect order. Crystal glasses disappear into cupboards. Chairs are returned to their exact positions, and spotless tablecloths replace those used during dinner. Even the flowers receive attention before dawn arrives. Wilted blooms are removed from vases and replaced with fresh arrangements gathered from the conservatory or gardens. The Victorians greatly admired fresh flowers, believing they reflected both beauty and refinement. A faded bouquet would suggest carelessness, something no respectable household wished to display. Gardeners often rose before sunrise, simply to collect the finest blossoms, while they were still covered with morning dew. The mansion's conservatory remains one of its most fascinating spaces. Built almost entirely from glass and iron, it allows wealthy families to grow plants from distant corners of the world, despite England's cool climate inside. The air feels warm and slightly humid, completely different from the weather outside. Palm trees stretch toward the glass roof, while orchids bloom beside delicate ferns. Exotic flowers from Asia, Africa, and South America flourish under careful supervision. Guests strolling through the conservatory often feel as though they have travelled to another continent without ever leaving the estate. Many Victorian mansions also contain a morning room, one of the brightest spaces in the house. Unlike the darker drawing room, which is often reserved for afternoon visitors, the morning room is designed to capture the first rays of sunlight. Here the family enjoys quieter moments before the day's responsibilities begin. Newspapers are unfolded, embroidery projects continue, children complete lessons, and letters are answered while sunlight pours through wide windows overlooking the gardens. Birds singing outside create a peaceful soundtrack that contrasts beautifully with the formal atmosphere found elsewhere in the mansion. The nursery occupies another unique corner of the house. Although elegantly furnished compared with ordinary homes, it feels noticeably different from the grand reception rooms downstairs. Wooden toys, rocking horses, alphabet books, dolls, miniature tea sets, and building blocks fill shelves carefully organized by the nursery staff. Bright wallpaper featuring animals or simple patterns replaces the darker colours preferred in formal rooms. Here, children laugh more freely than they would in the presence of adult guests. Governesses teach reading, writing, arithmetic, history, and geography, while nurses supervise meals, naps, and outdoor play. Education within a wealthy Victorian household is taken extremely seriously. Rather than attending local schools during their early years, many children receive private instruction inside the mansion itself. Tutors arrive carrying books, maps, scientific instruments, and writing materials. Lessons are structured with remarkable discipline. Boys may study Latin, Greek, mathematics, philosophy, and engineering principles, preparing them for prestigious universities. Girls receive a broad education as well, though greater emphasis is often placed upon literature, languages, music, drawing, and the social accomplishments expected of Victorian ladies. Curiosity is encouraged, but discipline remains constant. Science becomes increasingly fashionable throughout the Victorian period, and many wealthy families eagerly embrace new discoveries. Cabinets filled with fossils, minerals, shells, butterflies, and preserved plants appear in libraries and studies. Microscopes reveal tiny worlds invisible to the naked eye, astonishing both adults and children alike. Telescopes stand beside upper windows, allowing family members to observe the moon and stars during clear evenings. The Victorian age is one of remarkable invention, and many mansion owners take great pride in keeping pace with scientific progress. The study of natural history often extends beyond the mansion walls. Family members spend afternoons collecting unusual leaves, feathers, insects, and wildflowers during walks across the estate. Carefully labelled collections fill display cabinets, reflecting the Victorian belief that observing nature helps cultivate intelligence and moral character. Even simple country walks become opportunities for learning rather than mere recreation. Hunting plays an important role for many wealthy landowners. Early on autumn mornings, riders dressed in traditional hunting attire gather outside the mansion while horses snort impatiently in the cool air. Hunting dogs bark excitedly as servants make final adjustments to saddles and equipment. The countryside soon echoes with the sounds of galloping horses and hunting horns. Whether viewed as sport or tradition, these gatherings also strengthen friendships among neighbouring landowners and reinforce social bonds within the local community. Meanwhile, those remaining at the mansion continue their own routines. The housekeeper inspects every room with extraordinary attention to detail. She notices a loose curtain tassel, a slightly crooked picture frame, or a dusty corner that most visitors would never see. Her standards are uncompromising because the reputation of the household depends upon flawless presentation. Under her supervision, housemaids polish furniture until every carved surface gleams softly in the afternoon light. The mansion also serves as an important employer for the surrounding village. Gardeners, stable workers, laundresses, carpenters, blacksmiths, seamstresses, and seasonal labourers all depend, directly or indirectly, upon the estate. Deliveries arrive almost daily. Bakers bring fresh bread, butchers deliver meat, fishermen provide the morning's catch, and merchants unload tea, spices, sugar, fabrics, candles, and countless other supplies. Running such a household requires constant cooperation between the mansion and the wider community beyond its gates. Weather often dictates the rhythm of daily life more than modern people might expect. Heavy rain delays outdoor activities, floods pathways, and fills the house with damp umbrellas, muddy boots, and steaming overcoats. Strong winds rattle windows and bend towering trees across the estate. Thick fog occasionally surrounds the mansion so completely that even nearby buildings disappear into pale grey silence. During these moments, the glowing windows of the house become comforting beacons, shining through the mist. Summer evenings are especially memorable. As the sun slowly sets over rolling fields, golden light streams through western windows, illuminating dust particles drifting lazily through the air. Servants open windows to allow cool breezes inside, while distant birds settle into ancient trees surrounding the gardens. Families sometimes gather on terraces overlooking ornamental lakes, where swans glide silently across, still water reflecting the colours of the evening sky. It is during these peaceful moments that the mansion seems perfectly connected with the landscape around it. Autumn transforms the estate into a sea of colour. Leaves blaze with shades of crimson, amber, and gold, before carpeting long driveways beneath towering oaks. Gardeners spend countless hours sweeping pathways, while children enthusiastically collect the brightest leaves for scrapbooks or seasonal decorations. Kitchens become wonderfully fragrant with roasting chestnuts, baked apples, pumpkin pies, and jars of homemade preserves prepared for the colder months ahead. Winter demands even greater organization. Snow must be cleared from steps before visitors arrive. Frozen pipes require careful attention. Additional blankets appear in every bedroom, and heavy curtains are drawn earlier each afternoon to preserve warmth. Despite the challenges, winter also brings some of the mansion's happiest traditions. Families gather around crackling fireplaces, reading Christmas stories, singing carols accompanied by the piano, and exchanging thoughtful gifts wrapped in colourful paper and ribbon. Children eagerly await Father Christmas, while servants secretly prepare festive surprises below stairs. The passage of time becomes visible throughout the mansion in subtle ways. Wallpaper slowly fades where sunlight touches it year after year. Favourite books show worn leather bindings from repeated reading. Banisters become smooth after generations of hands have rested upon them. Certain floorboards develop familiar creaks known only to those who live there. None of these changes diminish the mansion's beauty. Imagine waking on a quiet Sunday morning when the mansion feels noticeably different from the rest of the week. The pace slows ever so slightly, and an unusual calm settles over the household. The servants still rise before dawn, fires are still lit, and breakfast is still prepared with the same precision, yet there is a gentler rhythm to the day. Church bells drift across the countryside, their deep tones echoing over fields and gardens before reaching the tall windows of the mansion. Family members dress in their finest clothes, choosing elegant but modest outfits suitable for worship. Carriages are made ready, horses are brushed until their coats shine, and within an hour the household begins its journey toward the village church, joining neighbours who have gathered from farms, cottages, and nearby estates. For a short time, differences in wealth seem less visible as everyone sits beneath the same stone roof, listening to familiar hymns. Returning from church, the family enjoys one of the most relaxed meals of the week. Conversation often turns away from business and estate management toward family memories, books recently read, or plans for future holidays. Children are expected to behave respectfully, but are allowed a little more freedom than usual. Afterwards, some family members stroll through the gardens, while others settle comfortably in the library with newspapers or novels. The atmosphere is peaceful, almost reflective, offering a rare pause before the busy routines of Monday begin once again. The mansion itself is never entirely silent, because every room seems to possess its own personality. The library smells faintly of old leather, polished oak, and fireplace smoke. The drawing room carries the delicate fragrance of flowers and furniture wax. The dining room always seems slightly cooler, its polished table waiting patiently for the next formal meal. Upstairs bedrooms feel softer and quieter, with thick curtains filtering sunlight into warm golden patterns across carpets. Even the hallways have their own character, filled with portraits, grandfather clocks, and the occasional echo of footsteps disappearing around distant corners. Zone fascinating feature of many Victorian mansions is the sheer number of doors. Nearly every corridor branches into another hallway, another staircase, another private room. Some doors lead to elegant reception rooms, while others open into hidden service passages known only to the household staff. Visitors may believe they understand the layout after several days, only to discover entirely new wings they never realized existed. It is surprisingly easy to become lost, especially in larger country houses with dozens of bedrooms and several floors connected by winding staircases. The attic occupies one of the mansion's most mysterious spaces. Beneath the steep roof, trunks filled with forgotten belongings quietly gather dust year after year. Old toys, once treasured by children now grown into adults, rest beside worn travelling cases covered in faded railway labels. Outdated fashions, carefully folded decades earlier, remain untouched inside wooden chests. Portraits removed from downstairs walls lean quietly against rafters, their painted faces waiting in silence. Broken furniture, unused mirrors, antique cradles, faded Christmas decorations, and bundles of old letters all become part of the attic's quiet history. Walking through this forgotten space feels almost like travelling backwards through time. The cellar offers an entirely different atmosphere, cool, dimly lit, and protected by thick stone walls. It provides ideal conditions for storing food throughout the year. Shelves overflow with jars of homemade jams, pickled vegetables, preserved fruits, and bottled sauces prepared during harvest season. Sacks of potatoes, onions, and carrots remain fresh for months in the cool air. Wheels of cheese mature slowly on wooden racks, while barrels of ale and cider wait patiently for special occasions. Every shelf reflects careful planning because the household must be prepared for long winters when fresh produce becomes scarce. Victorian households also take enormous pride in hospitality. Unexpected visitors are welcomed with remarkable generosity. Even if guests arrive without warning, servants can often prepare tea, sandwiches, cakes, and fresh flowers within minutes. Spare bedrooms remain ready throughout the year, complete with neatly folded linen, polished furniture, and water pitchers filled before each evening. Wealthy families believe that treating guests generously reflects not only good manners, but also the honor of the household itself. Afternoon tea gradually becomes one of the most beloved daily traditions. As the clock approaches 4, silver teapots appear alongside delicate porcelain cups, decorated with colourful flowers and gold trim. Plates of freshly baked scones, sponge cakes, Cucumber sandwiches, fruit tarts, and sweet biscuits cover elegant tables. Conversation remains light and cheerful while sunlight streams through tall windows overlooking perfectly maintained gardens. Although afternoon tea may seem simple, it offers an important opportunity for relaxation between lunch and the more formal evening meal. The mansion also serves as a place where important life events unfold. Engagements are announced beside roaring fireplaces, while relatives celebrate with champagne and heartfelt congratulations. Weddings begin with excited preparations in upstairs bedrooms, where bridesmaids help arrange flowing gowns beneath enormous mirrors. Newborn babies are welcomed into carefully prepared nurseries, filling once quiet rooms with laughter and tiny footsteps in the years that follow. Sadly, the mansion also witnesses moments of grief. Black mourning clothes replace colourful fashions, mirrors may be covered, and heavy silence settles over hallways that once echoed with celebration. Through joy and sorrow alike, the house remains a constant presence, quietly observing the passing generations. Technology gradually changes daily routines in subtle but fascinating ways. By the late Victorian period, some mansions begin installing electric bells, improved plumbing, and even early electrical lighting in selected rooms. Guests marvel at these innovations, gathering eagerly to watch lamps illuminate with the flick of a switch, rather than the lighting of a candle. Yet many families continue using traditional methods alongside modern inventions, creating an interesting blend of old customs and new technology within the same household. The estate surrounding the mansion remains just as carefully managed as the house itself. Foresters monitor ancient woodlands where deer wander beneath towering oaks. Gamekeepers patrol fields and forests, protecting wildlife while preventing poaching. Estate workers repair fences, maintain bridges, dredge ponds, and plant new trees whose full beauty may not be appreciated for another 100 years. Every improvement reflects long-term thinking, with each generation adding something valuable for those who will inherit the estate in the future. Visitors are often amazed by the mansion's extensive collection of clocks. Nearly every important room contains one, from delicate French mantel clocks to towering grandfather clocks, reaching almost to the ceiling. Keeping them all accurate requires constant attention. Once each week, someone carefully winds every mechanism using special keys, ensuring the entire house follows the same steady rhythm. When several clocks strike the hour together, their overlapping chimes fill the mansion with a rich chorus that becomes one of its most memorable sounds. Even simple household routines reveal remarkable organization. Linen cupboards contain carefully folded sheets arranged according to size and purpose. The silver room houses trays, serving dishes, candlesticks, and cutlery. Each item counted regularly to ensure nothing has been misplaced. The china pantry stores delicate porcelain, used only for the most important occasions. Keys to these valuable rooms are often carried personally by trusted senior servants, reflecting the importance placed upon responsibility and order. As evening approaches once more, sunlight begins slipping behind distant hills, bathing the mansion in soft amber light. Long shadows stretch across neatly trimmed lawns, while birds settle quietly into ancient trees surrounding the estate. Inside, servants move through the corridors, lighting lamps one by one, transforming every room with a warm golden glow. Curtains are drawn against the cooling night, Fireplaces are replenished with fresh coal, and the comforting aroma of dinner slowly drifts upward from the kitchens. The family gathers once again around the dining table, discussing the day's events while candlelight flickers across polished silver and crystal glass. Outside, darkness gradually envelops the gardens, leaving only the softly illuminated windows visible from afar. To anyone passing along the distant road, the mansion appears almost enchanted, standing proudly against the night sky with its glowing windows and elegant silhouette. Yet beneath all the beauty lies the true heart of Victorian mansion life. It is not simply the architecture, the expensive furniture, or the carefully landscaped gardens that make these homes remarkable. It is the intricate web of daily routines, traditions, responsibilities and relationships that allows such an enormous household to function with astonishing precision. Every polished floor, every perfectly laid table, every blooming flower arrangement, and every welcoming fire represents the combined efforts of many different people, each performing their role with quiet dedication. Imagine staying inside the Victorian mansion, not for a few days or weeks, but for many years, until the house itself begins to feel like an old companion whose habits you know by heart. You would soon realize that the mansion has its own daily rhythm, almost like the heartbeat of a living creature. Every sunrise brings familiar sounds, familiar routines, and familiar faces. Yet no 2 days are ever completely identical. Tiny differences appear constantly. A gardener proudly unveils a new rose that finally blooms after months of careful attention. A servant celebrates another year of loyal service. A shipment of rare books arrives from London. A distant cousin unexpectedly visits for several weeks. These small moments quietly weave together to create the rich fabric of life inside the house. One of the most remarkable aspects of the mansion is how carefully it protects the family's privacy. Visitors may admire the magnificent entrance hall, the drawing room, the library, and perhaps the gardens, but much of the house remains hidden from outsiders. Private sitting rooms, family bedrooms, nurseries, studies, dressing rooms, and service corridors exist beyond doors that guests rarely open. Even among regular visitors, there are areas considered too personal to enter without invitation. Respecting these invisible boundaries forms an important part of Victorian etiquette. The windows play a surprisingly important role in daily life. During the morning, servants throw open curtains to allow sunlight into every room. Throughout the day, windows frame constantly changing views of the estate. In spring, flowering trees fill the landscape with white and pink blossoms. Summer brings fields glowing beneath warm sunshine, while butterflies drift lazily across colourful gardens. Autumn paints every woodland in brilliant shades of crimson and gold, and winter transforms the grounds into a peaceful world of frost and snow. Simply standing beside a tall bay window can provide endless entertainment as nature changes from hour to hour. Many Victorian mansions include a smoking room reserved exclusively for gentlemen after dinner. Rich leather armchairs surround a crackling fireplace, while dark wooden cabinets display carefully crafted pipes, tobacco jars, and cigar boxes collected from across the world. Here, conversations become more relaxed than those held in the formal dining room. Politics, engineering, exploration, literature, and business opportunities dominate discussions, while smoke curls gently towards the ceiling. Meanwhile, ladies often retire to the drawing room where they continue conversations over tea, embroidery, or music before everyone reunites later in the evening. The mansion's clocks quietly control nearly every aspect of daily life. Breakfast begins at a precise hour. Lessons start promptly. Afternoon tea is never late. Dinner may be announced exactly as the evening clock strikes 7. Even servants organize their duties around these carefully observed schedules. Punctuality becomes a sign of discipline and respect, and arriving even a few minutes late for an important meal could be considered discourteous. The wardrobe rooms reveal another fascinating side of Victorian life. Clothing requires enormous care because garments are expensive and intended to last for many years. Dresses are brushed after every use, jackets carefully aired, shoes polished until they shine, and delicate fabrics repaired before tiny tears become larger problems. Seamstresses frequently visit the mansion to alter clothing as fashions change. Rather than discarding old garments, they are often remodeled into newer styles or reused by younger family members and servants. The family portrait gallery gradually expands over the decades. New paintings are commissioned to celebrate weddings, military achievements, university graduations, or important birthdays. Children who once appeared in tiny portraits eventually return years later as adults accompanied by husbands, wives, or children of their own. Walking along the gallery becomes like reading the family's history without opening a single book. Every face represents another chapter in a story stretching back generations. Books continue arriving throughout the year, filling the library beyond its original capacity. Shelves that once seemed spacious gradually become crowded with travel journals, scientific publications, poetry, atlases, encyclopedias, and beautifully illustrated volumes bound in colourful leather. Some books are read repeatedly until their pages become soft with age, while others remain almost untouched, admired more for their appearance than their contents. Yet together they create an atmosphere that encourages curiosity and lifelong learning. Rainy afternoons often inspire storytelling. Grandparents describe childhood memories from decades earlier, recalling journeys made by horse, drawn carriage, long before railways connected much of Britain. Elderly relatives remember famous public celebrations, royal ceremonies, harsh winters, or remarkable storms that damaged ancient trees across the estate. Children listen with wide eyes, imagining a world that already seems distant despite existing only one generation earlier. These stories become treasured family traditions passed quietly from parent to child. The servants also develop their own close community within the mansion. Although their work is demanding, many remain employed by the same household for decades. Friendships grow naturally through years of shared routines, celebrations, and challenges. They gather for meals in the servants' hall, exchanging stories, jokes, and news from nearby villages. Birthdays are quietly celebrated, weddings attended, and farewells marked whenever someone retires after many years of loyal service. While visitors often notice only the family upstairs, an entire second household exists below stairs with its own traditions, friendships, and daily routines. Christmas preparations begin surprisingly early. Weeks before the holiday arrives, kitchens fill with the rich aroma of dried fruit, spices, citrus peel, and brandy as enormous Christmas puddings are prepared. Decorations stored carefully in attic trunks are brought downstairs and dusted after months in storage. Evergreen branches are gathered from the estate, transforming staircases, fireplaces, and doorways into displays of festive greenery. Children eagerly count the remaining days, while secretly searching cupboards where wrapped presents have been hidden from curious eyes. Birthdays inside the mansion are treated as important family occasions rather than grand public events. Favorite meals are prepared, letters of congratulations arrive from distant relatives, and carefully chosen gifts appear neatly wrapped with ribbons. The birthday person often receives flowers from the gardens, handmade presents from younger children, or beautifully bound books reflecting personal interests. The celebrations may not always be extravagant, but they are filled with warmth and thoughtful gestures. As the Victorian era progresses, newspapers increasingly report astonishing technological achievements. Faster steamships shorten journeys across oceans. Railways continue expanding into remote regions. Great bridges span rivers, once considered impossible to cross. Electric power begins transforming cities. Family members eagerly discuss these developments over breakfast, wondering how future inventions might reshape everyday life. Some embrace every innovation enthusiastically, while others remain deeply attached to familiar traditions that have served them well for decades. The mansion occasionally welcomes fascinating visitors from distant parts of the world. Military officers returning from India, explorers describing African expeditions, archaeologists fresh from Egyptian excavations, or naval captains recounting voyages across the Atlantic, all bring remarkable stories that capture everyone's imagination. Evenings spent listening to such travelers become unforgettable experiences, allowing the family to glimpse distant lands without leaving the comfort of their own drawing room. There are also quiet days when almost nothing unusual happens. No visitors arrive, no celebrations take place. The family simply lives ordinary lives within extraordinary surroundings. Someone reads beside the fire. Another writes letters overlooking the gardens. Children complete arithmetic lessons before running outside to play. Gardeners trim hedges while cooks prepare familiar recipes downstairs. These peaceful, uneventful days often become the most comforting because they reveal the true rhythm of life inside the mansion, untouched by special occasions or formal gatherings. As years slowly pass, familiar servants retire, children grow into adults, and elderly relatives leave behind treasured memories. New generations gradually assume responsibility for the estate, learning the traditions that have guided the household for decades. The mansion adapts gently to these changes while preserving its essential character. Fresh wallpaper replaces faded patterns. New furniture joins treasured antiques. Improved heating and lighting make daily life more comfortable. Yet the atmosphere remains unmistakably Victorian, shaped by manners, discipline, and quiet elegance. If you stood outside the mansion at sunset after living there for many years, you might notice something visitors rarely understand. Imagine following the mansion through the changing hours of a single ordinary weekday, noticing how every moment has been carefully organized long before anyone living there was born. As the first pale light of dawn slips across the eastern horizon, the house is already beginning to stir. Thin ribbons of smoke rise from several chimneys, drifting lazily into the cool morning air. Dew clings to perfectly trimmed lawns, and the gravel driveway glistens faintly beneath the early sunlight. Birds gather in ancient oak trees surrounding the estate. their songs becoming the first natural music of the day. From a distance, the mansion appears perfectly still, almost asleep, yet behind its thick brick walls an entire community has already begun another day of quiet, disciplined work. In the servants' hall, breakfast is eaten quickly before duties begin in earnest. Fresh bread, porridge, tea, and perhaps a little bacon provide enough energy for the demanding hours ahead. Conversation remains cheerful, but brief, because everyone knows the household depends upon punctuality. The cook reviews the day's menu while housemaids collect cleaning supplies from neatly organized cupboards. The butler studies the family's schedule, noting expected visitors, deliveries, and appointments. Gardeners gather tools before disappearing into the mist-covered grounds. Every person understands exactly where they must be and what must be accomplished before the family downstairs even thinks about breakfast. As the upper floors slowly awaken, sunlight begins filtering through lace curtains, casting delicate patterns across polished wooden floors. Bedroom doors open quietly one after another. A maid enters carrying freshly heated water, while another carefully draws back the heavy curtains, revealing gardens sparkling beneath the morning light. The room instantly feels alive. Cool, fresh air drifts through slightly opened windows, carrying the scent of damp earth, roses, and newly cut grass. Somewhere in the distance, a horse whinnies from the stable yard while a gardener's rake softly scrapes across a gravel path. The dressing room becomes a place of remarkable activity. Ladies' gowns require careful attention before they are ready to wear. Corsets are laced with practiced precision, ribbons tied neatly, jewellery selected to match the day's activities, and hats prepared if visitors or outings are expected. Gentlemen shave using straight razors, polish spectacles, adjust waistcoats, and fasten crisp collars that remain surprisingly stiff throughout the day. Looking respectable is not merely a matter of vanity, but an important reflection of discipline, dignity, and social standing. Breakfast offers a peaceful beginning before the household becomes busier. Morning sunlight pours across the dining table, where silver teapots gently steam beside crystal jars of marmalade and honey. Fresh eggs arrive directly from the estate's poultry yard, while butter has been churned only hours earlier. Newspapers folded with remarkable precision await each family member. One page reports debates taking place in Parliament. Another describes new railway lines extending across the country, while yet another discusses scientific discoveries or distant events occurring throughout the British Empire. These conversations remind everyone that although the mansion feels private and secluded, it remains connected to a rapidly changing world. After breakfast, every room begins serving its own purpose. The library fills with quiet concentration as letters are answered, using elegant fountain pens dipped repeatedly into glass bottles of ink. The morning room welcomes bright sunshine, making it ideal for reading, embroidery, and conversation. Children disappear into the schoolroom, where lessons begin promptly under the careful supervision of governesses and tutors. Arithmetic problems fill blackboards, while geography lessons explore continents many pupils dream of visiting one day. Maps hang neatly upon the walls beside globes displaying countries whose names sound wonderfully distant and mysterious. Elsewhere, the housekeeper conducts her daily inspection with remarkable attention to detail. She notices everything: a curtain hanging slightly unevenly, a fingerprint left upon polished brass, a flower arrangement beginning to fade, a rug requiring straightening after yesterday's visitors. Nothing escapes her careful eye. Rather than criticizing unnecessarily, she quietly ensures every small imperfection is corrected before guests ever have an opportunity to notice. Her work reflects a Victorian belief that excellence is achieved not through grand gestures, but through constant attention to the smallest details. The stable yard possesses an entirely different atmosphere from the elegant rooms inside the mansion. Here the smell of fresh hay, leather, horses, and polished wood fills the air. Stable boys brush magnificent horses until their coats gleam beneath the morning sun. Saddles receive careful cleaning after every ride. Harnesses hang neatly upon wooden racks, each one regularly inspected for signs of wear. Carriages stand ready beneath protective shelters, their wheels polished and their interiors spotless, should the family suddenly decide upon an afternoon drive through the countryside. Beyond the stables stretch productive gardens, supplying much of the household's food. Gardeners move methodically between rows of vegetables, carefully removing weeds and inspecting each plant for signs of disease. Fruit trees receive constant attention throughout the year. Apples, pears, cherries, plums, and peaches are harvested according to the season, many preserved inside the kitchens as jams, pies, and bottled fruit to be enjoyed during winter. Herb gardens provide fresh mint, rosemary, thyme, sage, and lavender, their fragrances drifting gently through the warm afternoon air whenever someone brushes against the leaves. Inside the mansion, deliveries arrive steadily throughout the day. Large wicker baskets filled with fresh fish from coastal markets appear at the kitchen entrance. Local farmers deliver cream, butter, cheese, and eggs. Tailors bring newly finished garments carefully wrapped to protect delicate fabrics. Booksellers occasionally arrive carrying recently published novels or beautifully illustrated volumes requested months earlier. Every delivery is recorded carefully, inspected thoroughly, and stored in its proper place without disrupting the household's peaceful routine. Afternoons often bring moments of quiet enjoyment rather than formal obligations. A daughter may sit beside a sunny window sketching the gardens, while her younger brother practices difficult piano exercises in another room. Their mother writes thoughtful letters to distant relatives, occasionally pausing to admire butterflies drifting among roses outside. The father studies estate accounts before taking a leisurely walk through nearby woodlands where ancient trees have shaded generations of the same family. These ordinary activities may appear uneventful, yet together they create a deep sense of stability that defines life within the mansion. Visitors occasionally arrive without elaborate ceremonies. A neighbouring landowner may stop by for tea after inspecting nearby fields. The local vicar might call to discuss village affairs or charitable projects. A cousin travelling through the county could unexpectedly spend the night before continuing the journey. The household remains remarkably adaptable, capable of welcoming guests with warmth and efficiency, regardless of how suddenly they appear. Fresh flowers are arranged within minutes, bedrooms prepared, fires lit if necessary, and refreshments served almost effortlessly. As evening approaches, the quality of light changes dramatically inside the mansion. Golden sunlight enters through western windows, illuminating polished furniture with a warm glow impossible to reproduce using candles alone. Dust particles float lazily through the air like tiny stars suspended in sunlight. Shadows gradually lengthen across hallways, While gardeners finish their final tasks before returning tools to neatly organized sheds, birds settle into towering trees, replacing the busy sounds of daytime with gentle evening calls echoing across the estate. Dinner remains the most formal meal of the day, even when no guests are present. Everyone changes into appropriate evening clothing before gathering around the beautifully prepared table. Conversation flows naturally between courses, ranging from literature and travel to scientific discoveries and family news. The butler supervises every detail with calm precision, while footmen move quietly around the room, replacing plates almost invisibly. Crystal glasses catch the candlelight, silver reflects flickering flames, and the entire room glows with quiet elegance. After dinner, the family gradually separates according to individual interests. Someone chooses a favorite novel from the library shelves. Another settles before the piano, filling nearby rooms with gentle melodies. Two brothers begin an energetic game of chess beside the fire, while an aunt works patiently on an intricate piece of embroidery. No one rushes. There is time to think, to read, to converse, and simply to enjoy one another's company, without interruption from modern distractions. Outside, darkness slowly envelops the estate. The last traces of sunset disappear behind distant hills, leaving the mansion standing proudly beneath a sky filled with countless stars. Oil lamps and candles transform the windows into glowing rectangles, visible from far beyond the estate boundaries. Travellers passing along nearby roads sometimes glance towards the illuminated house, wondering what conversations, celebrations, or quiet family moments might be unfolding inside those grand walls. Eventually the hour grows late, books are gently closed, the piano falls silent. Imagine exploring the mansion during the quiet hours between breakfast and luncheon, when the household has settled into its familiar rhythm, and every room seems to serve a different purpose. Sunlight streams through enormous windows, illuminating polished oak floors that have been waxed so carefully they reflect the ceiling above like still water. The air feels fresh, carrying the faint scent of beeswax, fresh flowers and coal fires burning gently in distant fireplaces. Outside, the gardens glow with colour, while inside, every clock quietly marks the passing hours with calm certainty. Nothing feels hurried, yet nothing stands still. The entire house moves forward with quiet purpose, guided by routines repeated day after day, year after year. The entrance hall remains one of the busiest places in the mansion, even when no visitors are expected. Deliveries arrive throughout the morning, each one carefully received by servants who know exactly where every parcel belongs. Wooden crates filled with fine china, baskets of fresh fruit, bolts of fabric from London, and boxes containing imported tea or spices are carried inside without disturbing the peaceful atmosphere. Every item is checked, recorded, and stored with remarkable efficiency. A visitor watching from the staircase might hardly notice the constant movement, because the staff have perfected the art of working almost silently. The mansion's walls themselves seem to tell stories. Many are decorated with richly patterned wallpaper inspired by nature, featuring climbing vines, flowering plants, birds, and intricate geometric designs. Some wallpapers have remained unchanged for decades, surviving generations of family life while gradually fading beneath countless summers of sunlight. Others have recently been replaced to reflect changing fashions, proving that even the grandest homes quietly evolve with the times. Decorative mouldings frame ceilings, where delicate plasterwork forms elegant patterns that visitors often admire without fully appreciating the extraordinary craftsmanship involved. The ceilings soar high above every room, creating a feeling of space that smaller houses could never achieve. Ornate chandeliers hang gracefully overhead, their crystal droplets catching every flicker of candlelight during evening gatherings. In daylight, they sparkle softly as sunlight passes through each carefully cut crystal. Cleaning these magnificent chandeliers requires patience, steady hands, and tall ladders. Every crystal prism must be removed, washed, dried, polished, and replaced individually, a task so demanding that it may occupy servants for several days. The mansion's doors are masterpieces in themselves. Many are crafted from solid mahogany or oak, decorated with carved panels and polished brass handles that feel cool to the touch. Opening one heavy door after another creates a satisfying rhythm as you wander through the house. Some doors swing easily into cheerful family rooms filled with conversation, while others lead into quiet studies where silence is almost expected. Every doorway marks a subtle transition between different parts of household life. The fireplaces deserve admiration beyond simply providing warmth. Each mantelpiece reflects the family's taste and status through carefully chosen decorations. Marble clocks stand proudly at the center, flanked by matching candlesticks or delicate porcelain figures. Family photographs gradually begin appearing in later Victorian years, joining treasured ornaments collected during travels across Europe and beyond. Above many fireplaces hangs a large painting whose colors become richer in the warm glow of evening fires. Maintaining the mansion requires constant attention from skilled craftsmen as well as household servants. Carpenters regularly inspect wooden floors, repairing loose boards before they become dangerous. Glaziers replace cracked window panes after severe storms. Roofers climb high above the chimneys to replace damaged slates loosened by winter winds. Painters refresh exterior woodwork every few years, protecting it from Britain's damp climate. The mansion never truly stops being built, because preserving such a large home is an endless responsibility rather than a finished project. The estate office, though rarely visited by guests, forms the administrative heart of the property. Here, detailed records are kept concerning rents, harvests, repairs, wages, and purchases. Shelves hold enormous leather, bound ledgers filled with careful handwriting stretching back decades. Maps of surrounding farmland cover the walls, marked with fields, woodlands, streams, and tenant cottages. Estate managers spend long hours balancing accounts, arranging repairs, and ensuring that every part of the property continues operating smoothly. Nearby villages often depend heavily upon the mansion. During harvest time, additional workers arrive to help gather crops from surrounding fields. Local blacksmiths repair farm equipment used across the estate. Wheelwrights maintain carts and wagons. Bricklayers assist with repairs to cottages belonging to estate workers. The mansion therefore functions not merely as a private home, but as the centre of a much larger community whose livelihoods are closely connected to its continued prosperity. Children growing up inside such surroundings develop a unique relationship with the house. Corridors that seem enormous to visitors gradually become familiar pathways memorized through years of exploration. Every child knows which staircase creaks most loudly, which window offers the finest view of approaching storms, and which corner of the garden produces the sweetest strawberries during summer. Favorite climbing trees become treasured companions, while hidden garden benches provide peaceful places to read adventure stories or simply dream about the future. Rainy days transform the mansion into a world almost completely separated from the outside. Water trickles gently down tall windows while grey clouds darken the sky by early afternoon. Candles are lit sooner than usual, creating a cozy atmosphere, despite the gloomy weather. Books become especially popular companions on such days. Family members gather in comfortable chairs near glowing fireplaces, occasionally looking up from their reading to watch raindrops racing each other down the glass. The steady rhythm of rainfall seems to slow time itself, encouraging long conversations and quiet reflection. Thunderstorms bring an entirely different excitement. Brilliant flashes of lightning briefly illuminate every room before distant thunder rolls across the countryside. Children often hurry to windows, despite being gently reminded to stay back. Servants quickly close shutters against strong winds, while fireplaces crackle more brightly than ever. The thick stone walls provide a reassuring sense of security, making the powerful storm outside feel dramatic yet strangely comforting. As evening approaches, servants prepare for the ritual of lighting the house. Before electricity becomes common, this is no simple task. Dozens upon dozens of candles and oil lamps must be lit in the correct order. One servant carries a long taper from room to room, using its flame to awaken every waiting candle. Gradually, the mansion changes from bright daylight to warm golden illumination. Mirrors multiply the gentle glow while polished furniture reflects tiny points of dancing light across every room. Dinner conversations often reveal the intellectual interests of the Victorian upper classes. Discussions may include recent archaeological discoveries in Egypt, reports of explorers crossing distant continents, advances in medicine, debates surrounding new inventions, or the latest novels attracting attention throughout Britain. Family members value thoughtful conversation and encourage younger generations to express informed opinions, while remaining respectful of differing viewpoints. Meals therefore become opportunities not only for nourishment, but also for education and shared curiosity. Later in the evening, someone may suggest a game of charades, requiring family members to act out books, historical figures, or famous plays without speaking a single word. Laughter echoes through the drawing room, as even the most serious relatives struggle to guess increasingly imaginative performances. On another evening, a puzzle might occupy everyone around the library table, or a collection of stereoscopic photographs may transport viewers to distant landscapes through one of the Victorian era's most fascinating new entertainments. The mansion also preserves countless family traditions that outsiders rarely witness. Certain chairs are always occupied by particular relatives during Christmas dinner. A favourite silver teapot appears only on birthdays. An ancient oak planted by a long-forgotten ancestor becomes the meeting place for summer picnics every year without fail. Children eagerly await these traditions because they connect them with generations they never had the opportunity to meet. Through these simple customs, the family's history quietly continues from one generation to the next. Time passes almost unnoticed inside such a house. Seasons replace one another with comforting regularity. Roses bloom, fade, and bloom again. Snow falls upon the same rooftops, winter after winter. Young servants gradually become experienced household staff, while children who once played hide and seek beneath the staircases eventually welcome guests of their own. Portraits multiply upon the walls, silently recording the passage of decades. The mansion remains standing through it all, watching each generation leave its own gentle mark upon rooms already rich with memories. As midnight approaches for the final time in your imagined visit, you pause in the center of the great entrance hall. Imagine waking before sunrise on one of the shortest days of winter, when darkness still blankets the estate, and the mansion seems wrapped in complete silence. Frost covers every blade of grass outside, sparkling faintly beneath the pale light of the moon, while a thin layer of ice forms along the edges of the ornamental lake. From the outside, the mansion appears almost mysterious, its many chimneys sending gentle streams of smoke into the still morning air. Only a handful of windows glow with warm light, hinting that somewhere inside, another carefully planned day has already begun. The contrast between the icy landscape outside and the comforting warmth within makes the mansion feel like a small world entirely separate from the harsh winter beyond its walls. Long before the family awakens, the kitchen has become the busiest room in the house. Coal burns brightly beneath the great cast, iron range filling the room with warmth that is welcome on such a cold morning. Copper kettles whistle softly while loaves of bread rise beneath linen cloths. The cook tastes soup simmering slowly in heavy pots, adjusts the seasoning with practiced confidence, and directs younger assistants without wasting a single movement. Every task has been repeated so many times that the kitchen staff seem almost able to anticipate one another's actions without speaking. Outside, gardeners continue their work despite the cold. They brush snow from delicate shrubs to prevent branches from snapping beneath the weight. Frozen pathways are covered with sand or ash, so that family members and visitors may walk safely across the estate. Dead branches are trimmed from ancient trees, preparing them for the coming spring. Although flowers no longer bloom, the gardens remain beautiful in a quieter way. Bare branches reveal elegant shapes normally hidden beneath leaves, while neatly clipped hedges stand out sharply against the white landscape. The mansion itself responds to winter almost like a living organism. Doors are opened only briefly to preserve warmth. Heavy curtains remain closed until daylight strengthens. Fires burn in nearly every occupied room, creating gentle waves of heat that slowly spread through thick stone walls. Servants carry fresh coal in polished brass buckets, adding fuel before the flames begin to fade. The smell of burning oak and coal mingles with the scent of pine branches decorating fireplaces and staircases, creating an atmosphere that feels unmistakably Victorian. As daylight finally arrives, it brings only a soft silver glow filtered through clouds. The winter sun remains low in the sky, casting long shadows across snow-covered lawns and making every frozen branch glitter like crystal. Family members often pause beside tall windows simply to admire the quiet beauty outside. Deer occasionally wander near the edge of the woodland searching for food, while small birds gather round feeders maintained carefully by gardeners throughout the colder months. Nature continues its daily routines despite the season, reminding everyone that spring will eventually return. The mansion's morning routine changes only slightly during winter. Breakfast becomes heartier, featuring warm porridge, freshly baked rolls, smoked fish, sausages, eggs, and steaming tea served in elegant porcelain cups. Thick slices of toast disappear almost as quickly as they are served, accompanied by homemade marmalade prepared during the summer when oranges were plentiful. Family members linger slightly longer around the dining table, appreciating both the meal and the comforting warmth provided by the nearby fire. Once breakfast concludes, ordinary life resumes. The master of the house retreats to his study, where estate correspondence awaits. Bills must be reviewed, repairs organised, and letters answered with careful attention. The room is lined with shelves overflowing with books whose leather bindings have grown smoother after years of use. A large globe stands near the window beside detailed maps showing counties, railway lines, and distant colonies scattered across the world. Every object reflects a Victorian fascination with knowledge, exploration, and careful organisation. The lady of the house spends much of her morning supervising charitable projects, household accounts, and the education of younger children. Wealthy Victorian women often carried significant responsibilities behind the scenes, ensuring that the household functioned smoothly while also supporting churches, schools, hospitals, and local families experiencing hardship. Charity was considered an important duty rather than merely an occasional act of generosity. Baskets of food, warm blankets, and clothing might quietly leave the mansion for nearby cottages during particularly severe winters, delivered without expecting recognition in return. Children, meanwhile, continue their lessons despite secretly hoping for enough snowfall to enjoy an afternoon outdoors. The schoolroom remains lively with recitations of poetry, geography exercises, French vocabulary, and history lessons describing kings, queens, and famous battles. Maps cover one wall while shelves display globes, dictionaries, and collections of natural specimens gathered during family walks. The governess maintains firm discipline, yet she also understands that curiosity is one of the greatest gifts education can encourage. At midday, sunlight briefly brightens the conservatory, turning its glass roof into a glowing canopy. Stepping inside feels almost magical after crossing the frosty gardens. Warm, humid air surrounds you immediately, carrying the fragrance of citrus trees, orchids, jasmine, and damp earth. Bright green leaves fill every corner, creating the illusion of spring despite the freezing temperatures outside. Exotic birds occasionally flutter among the branches, their cheerful songs echoing softly through the glass structure. Visitors often spend far longer here than they intended, enjoying the peaceful contrast between the tropical warmth within and the winter landscape beyond the windows. Afternoons during winter invite quieter forms of entertainment. Family members gather in the library where large fires burn steadily beneath carved stone mantels. Someone reads aloud from a newly published novel while others sew, sketch, or simply listen with cups of tea resting nearby. The steady crackling of burning logs becomes a comforting background to every conversation. Outside, snow may continue falling silently, but inside the mansion time seems to slow into a peaceful rhythm. The mansion's collection of musical instruments often becomes especially important during the colder months. A grand piano occupies a prominent place in the drawing room, while violins, cellos, flutes, and occasionally even a harp are brought out during family evenings. Music fills the house in ways that no mechanical recording ever could. Every performance is unique, shaped by the mood of the players and the atmosphere of the evening. Favorite hymns, folk songs, classical pieces, and cheerful dances echo gently through rooms illuminated by candlelight. As darkness falls early, preparations for dinner begin much sooner than during summer. Candles are lit throughout the mansion until every corridor glows softly beneath golden light. Reflections shimmer across polished silver, crystal glassware, and highly waxed furniture. The effect is almost magical, transforming familiar rooms into spaces filled with warmth and quiet elegance. Guests arriving on winter evenings often pause in the entrance hall simply to admire the welcoming atmosphere created by hundreds of flickering flames. Dinner itself offers welcome comfort after the cold day outside. Rich soups, roasted game birds, seasonal vegetables, buttery potatoes, freshly baked bread, and warming puddings appear one course after another. Conversation flows naturally as family members discuss books, travel, scientific discoveries, and plans for the coming spring. Laughter rises occasionally above the gentle clink of cutlery, reminding everyone that even during the darkest season, the mansion remains filled with life. Later, after the meal has ended, some family members retire to the drawing room, while others remain near the dining room fire, discussing politics or local affairs. Children play quiet board games before bedtime, occasionally glancing through frosted windows to watch snowflakes drifting beneath the moonlight. The household gradually becomes quieter as one person after another wishes everyone good night and climbs the grand staircase carrying a single candle whose flame dances gently with every step. Eventually only the servants remain awake. They clear the final dishes, sweep ashes from hearths, prepare breakfast ingredients for the following morning, and make one last journey through the mansion, ensuring every window is secure against the cold night. Their footsteps echo softly through silent corridors before fading once again into stillness. Outside, the great Victorian mansion stands proudly beneath a sky crowded with brilliant winter stars. Snow rests upon rooftops, chimneys, and garden statues, softening every edge of the landscape. Inside, behind thick walls and glowing windows, generations of memories continue to gather almost unnoticed. Another ordinary winter day has quietly become part of the mansion's long history, joining thousands of others that together tell the remarkable story of life inside one of the Victorian era's grandest homes, where elegance, tradition, and quiet perseverance shaped every hour from dawn until long after midnight.